Hi, I'm Karen Novowiejski, and I am your program manager for the Defense Media Awards. And I just want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. So today we're going to be providing live feedback on your photography entries. And unfortunately, a couple of our judges couldn't be here today, but we do have two of the best in the business who are here. So before we kind of get everything started, I'm going to go ahead and have them introduce themselves, and we will get started. Over here on my right.
Okay. Hi, my name's Melissa Little. I am immediate past president of the National Press Photographers Association. I'm a freelance photographer based in Washington, D.C., and before that had a 15-year career at newspapers in Florida, where I learned to be a good community journalist.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for being here today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for judging for us as well.
Benny Davis, Air Force veteran, retired, and I work for Airman Magazine here at the Defense Media Activity. 21 years of clicking shots for the Air Force, and former program manager for this program as well.
So you got all kinds of people here that know what we're going to be doing and what we're going to be talking about. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So these photos are coming up in no particular order. We will be talking about the photos individually. I know that we do have picture stories, and those were evaluated as picture stories. So we're just going to move through. There is no particular order in terms of who's first, who's second, who's third. Only I actually know who the winners are this year at this point. So very excited. Let's go ahead and get started. So this photo, what do you guys think?
What category? Are we just going just directly off of the photograph itself?
We're just going to go off the
Okay.
photograph itself. Mm-hmm.
All right. I would say that, well, I mean, I like the subject matter, of course, but I think that the photograph itself, the time of day, and that it was shot could have exposed a little bit more for the highlights, and cropped a little bit tighter for impact on this one. It's how can you go wrong with two airmen in the flag? But it's nice catching the reflection. That's a different look. Yeah.
Yeah, my critique on this one was, it was a great cut line about the reflection in the glasses, and I said, if you're seeing that, I want to see it too.
Yeah.
And my feedback for photographers in these situations is you get this sort of cover your butt shot, and then you move in and you get tighter.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're seeing something cool visually, respond to it. Put the 70 to 200 on, put long glass on, and really get in there, because it's that reflection that completely makes the shot stand out from other shots that are similar that I've seen in years past.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest feedback too would just be to, our job as photographers to eliminate as many distractions as possible. So you've got the little bokeh in the background, the white circle, you've got the road in the background that can be changed with just a simple change of perspective to eliminate some of those distractions. But yeah, get in tighter.
Okay, next shot.
So this was this was a single from the Warrior Games.
Okay.
That he pulled out and had a larger story on elsewhere. My feedback on this was just, compelling subject matter. I just wanted a moment. Mm-hmm. If you see something like this and you respond to something like this that's this gripping, mm-hmm. where there's a story there, just wait. Wait for that reaction, wait for that sigh, wait for a high five at the end, just work the heck out of a situation like this when you've got great subject matter in front of you.
Yeah, and a very clean photograph too. So they see this, you see the individual, you see the subject, everything kind of sticks out. Again, I would come in just a little bit more on it and then just sit there and wait exactly for something that gives you more. You get a sense of the feeling for this, just the chin or the cheek, rested, but you want just a little bit more to set it apart.
Moments don't have to be big.
Mm-hmm.
A moment sometimes is just a look or mm-hmm. Just an expression.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking back and checking, his gun before he fires it, or just kind of looking over his shoulder. I mean, it could be just literally the blink of an eye in this situation, but it needed just a little bit more to grip me.
Right.
And I just wanted this photographer to work it a little bit more.
A little bit more, yeah.
Okay, moving on.
I mean, great angle.
Yeah.
Kudos to that for really cleaning it up. I mean, I know these situations get really messy, and there's a lot of chaos and a lot of background elements that are distracting. And like you said earlier, it's our job to eliminate as much of that as possible. Like, kudos to a really clean, great angle.
I dig it, like the marionette, perspective, like it's, soldier on a string, so to speak. But I will say that it's, in my personal opinion too, the vignette is a little off, and it's a little heavy-handed on the corners. Something that I look for, just knowing the time of day, and again, exposed for your highlights in this situation. And then, but it's just a little off in the way that the vignetting was done, burning down the corners on the side. So, I mean, when it becomes obvious, then it becomes a distraction.
All right, next photo.
Great framing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, watching Air Force One come in, and you found something to put in the foreground to kind of create a layer there and give a little context as to where that plane is landing. Like, I mean, really nice seeing,
Oh, absolutely. It's the only thing missing to make this photograph go to the next level is just that human element. This could be somebody coming out of the back. It could be somebody not even paying attention in the back, but just a little more of a human element, or some folks watching underneath the wing of the Osprey. Would have been money. But again, when you're out there and you're on a flight line and you got to shoot Air Force One coming down, this is a good way to do it. Yeah.
Okay, next photo. Wow.
Yeah, it's a compelling frame. I think with silhouettes, in order for them to be really, really effective and impactful, the cleaner the better. And if this photographer would have just dropped to his or her knee and maybe cleaned it up, waited for separation between the firefighters on the side, it would have taken this photo up just a notch. But I love the sort of moody exposure and the light that's coming in there, and it's all working. You just have to wait for those elements to sort of come together compositionally.
Yeah.
But really, really cool scene.
Yeah, technically it's there. It's just, again, waiting. It's micro separation sometimes that can make the difference in a photograph. Just separating the two of them there, maybe a slight perspective shift, and then down a little bit more to really bring the foreground in. But yeah, I mean, it's a good shot of the training that they were doing out there with the fire department.
Excellent. Next.
I mean, it's clean, it's quiet, the light is beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
composition works. Like, this is what I'm talking about with silhouettes and separation. Like, you wait for all those elements to kind of line up. If these two heads are coming together, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But the fact that the light is just money on that flag, and right where you want it to be, like, I find no fault in an image like this.
No, my first instinct would be what it was to crop in a little bit more, but then the more that I see it and how the two angles of the hats on each side are kind of framing into the center, it's almost like a selective color photograph in a sense. It's very monochromatic, but then the flag really pops out. The burning and stuff on the sides, technically could be cleaned up just a little bit more from one corner to the next. You see the different change in grass colors, but for going out there and shooting this in a situation where you're generally under an overhang when this is happening and it's all backlit and you can make a photograph like this, that's nice. Yeah, that's a hard situation to be in.
Next photo.
It's a nice quiet moment. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think job well done for the situation. I think this is what we have to do as photojournalists sometimes, is kind of use every trick in our bag to make compelling images. Mm-hmm. I like that the panning adds a little element of speed to it. And, again, I'll drive home moments, because as a photojournalist, that's number one in my book as to what makes a great picture, and just kind of that spirit of competition, or, just one other writer in the frame coming in to challenge or something, like, do this repeatedly, and just keep doing it until a moment happens in front of you. But it's a great way to clean up a shot as well as that pan. It's nice, it's clean, it looks like an inspirational poster.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's really tough to find fault in some things, and for me, the biggest thing is just, you're seeing light, you're responding to composition, you know what makes a good photo. Now wait to elevate that and just let it rise above with something that really grips you. This photo with a moment would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Even if she's just looking over her shoulder, or there's another wheel and rider's head coming in like they're challenging. I mean,
some tension or something inside of it that helps push it to the next level. Yeah, absolutely. Everything Melissa said, I mean, nailed it. It's yeah, you got the job done, but to really for competition and everything else, just moment.
Next slide.
Not much different than the last image. It's the same thing. The real photographs, I mean, you have the photographs that you can get in and you're shooting from the side of the pool, but then you got to try to make the usual look unusual. Getting in the water, shooting from underneath, shooting from above, finding a different perspective to make it look different, something different. But the real moment here is in the end, like capturing the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. That's where you're really going to capture your moments. Because there's not much in this except for just the action itself. You colors there, technically you probably expose for those highlights, bring those down a little bit more. You're dealing with, again, probably a noon shoot, and you got the job done, most definitely, but always find a way to make it look unusual.
Next photo.
Yeah, I have a problem with overuse of wide angle. I see it a lot. And it just, there are other ways to sort of tell this story. The fact that she's seated and in a chair, back it up, give me context, tell me why this matters. How is this set of games different from another athletic competition? Because that's what makes the Warrior Games special. But it's, when you make this shot, put it in your bag and then start to take some risks. And sometimes that risk is simply stepping back, and taking in the whole scene and showing why this matters.
Yeah. Because that it was part of a package and everything else in Warrior Games, anybody else, it would be a really hard read to understand, what the context of, the shot put is for her doing it outside of just the action itself. So give it some context by getting back a little bit and giving a sense of place. And then, again, find another way to shoot it that nobody else has done.
And I think if you're not going to give it proper context, then clean it up as much as humanly possible. I mean, that's one of the things that we can really control as photojournalists is the composition. You get down 2 more inches and you've got this blue shirt against this blue sky, you get those telephone poles and wires out of there. Yeah. And maybe then it's just head, hand, and ball, and it kind of becomes a cooler, more graphic image.
Yeah, you got to be careful of all this. Even the watch is another huge distraction on her knife hand there. But yeah, poles, white objects, white cars. I mean, they're out there. I mean, that's the hunt, is really trying to eliminate them from your background.
Now, I will say that we're probably working through the photo series right now. So context may be, obviously when we looked at the entire layout, there might have been the context in there. So just something to consider.
I mean, and it feels like it's a supporting image for a competition, for the event, but there's still, compositionally and technically, there's still some ways to kind of bring it to that. Every image that you have in there, if it's not a narrative, if it's a photo essay or a photo series, every image in there should be a standalone, solid image. You can get away with some things when you're doing a narrative, and you have supporting elements or details that just help to further the story. But for something like this, they should all be rock solid.
Okay, next photo.
I mean, the wide angle.
You want to talk about the wide angle? Yeah.
It kills me. It kills me. Like it just takes this perspective from a normal image, and it's so distracting to my eye. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that the photographer stepped back and tried to work a little context and kind of show a little bit more of the scene, because if I'm remembering correctly, it was the first time they did this in this series, where I got to see the playing field and I got to see the competition, and but man, is that distracting.
Yeah. Unfortunately for the shooters that are getting feedback today, I'm too. I'm not a wide angle fan, especially when it becomes to that point where the perspective is completely off and it's distracting. And there's such good character right there that you have. You shot this for a reason, of course, more than just the action. You know, get back with a normal lens or shoot into it with a zoom to capture that.
Yeah, I think if I'm noticing your equipment and I'm noticing the technicals, then you didn't do your job. You know, you've taken away from the actual storytelling by distracting me.
Okay, next photo.
Let's hope there's no fish eyes in here.
Thankfully, no, there wasn't.
Thoughts?
Poles, they suck. There's such good like just the hand grip, the light on the muscles. There's more like just the muscle tone of the individual.
The Superman socks.
Yeah, it's just you want this to the perspective to change and you want it to be cleaned up a little bit more. But again, I know it's tough. We go out there and you shoot. And it's like your job is to shoot this at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So it's the lighting is going to be horrible and everything else, and you got to find ways to make it work. But changing the angle or waiting for a different moment. Yeah, I love the clouds, love the sky, and I love the muscles and the tension. There's something there, and just work that scene.
Next photo.
Oh.
Yeah, so this was probably my favorite picture in this series, and not just because a dog was worked into it, which makes every photo better, but it's a moment. It's away from the competition. It shows this, like, the humanity of the athletes there, and it really added something to this package for me. I want to see more like this.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is more of what the Warrior Games is about than the actions itself. So it's those emotions. It's you know, what's going on in the fringes. Get a feel and a sense of feel. Like we tell young photographers, you know, you go out and you continually to shoot what it looks like. I want you to go out and shoot what it feels like. And when you shoot something like this, then I understand what it feels like to be a participant in the Warrior Games.
That's such a wonderful point. Could you make it again?
Yeah, well, shoot what it feels like. I mean, we get so wrapped around chasing action and shooting what every day looks like. But you, as a photographer, your job is really to step into the scene and shoot what it feels like.
I'm going to write that one down because that's such a great way to put it.
It was given to me by Mary F. Calvert many years ago at one of my first workshops, where she said, "You do a great job at shooting the scene, bringing back these images, but I want to feel what it's like to be this individual." And from that moment on, when she told me, that's always the thing that I've even taught my students is always shoot the feels. It's all about the feels.
It's all about the feels.
Yeah.
You want to have all of the feels when you
All
look
the
at the
feels.
photos. Okay, next photo.
Oh. I dig this one. It's just a little off. I mean, this one is the hand, the arm, you're getting us another supporting image where you have this, and I want to know why everybody's covering and what's going on. So I'm curious when I'm looking at this and I'm looking around the photo. And it was cleanly done, but then again, my eye continues to go just right to that forearm. So I just wanted kind of a slightly different perspective on what's happening here.
Just a little shift.
Yeah.
A foot to the left, or yeah, would have made this image a little bit better for me.
Yeah.
All right, next photo.
It still grabs my attention. Oh man.
What do we think?
I want to be there.
I know, I absolutely want to be there. It doesn't look like it's raining.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's static, and it's nice. The light makes this the feeling of wanting to watch the sunset. They're probably out in some type of exercise or something. There's little things technically that again, this one's a little heavy-handed for me because my eye is going to go directly under his arm where you see the water is a little bit bluer than the rest of the water. So when the photographer is processing their images, they've got to be mindful of that. Like anything that you do, and other photographers are going to be able to spot this stuff, is just when you're working and processing your images, which everybody should process their image. That's a natural part of being a photographer. But when you get a little heavy-handed on your dodging and burning and toning things down and everything else, you got to make sure that you're bringing back something that is realistic. But when I see under the arm and I see the blue water here, but then the darker water out here, that's immediately going to be a distraction to me. So where it's a nice scene and everything else, be very careful and get with some folks and a mentor and an editor to really look at your stuff before sending it in, to get notice on things like this. And be careful how you're processing your stuff. You want to keep it, your job is to go out there and capture, the truth of the scene. So that's my advice on this. And then 2, watch your horizons, keep them out of the middle of the frame, work that a little bit more too. But be careful of the heavy-handedness.
When you're talking about something in the middle of the frame, what are you referring to on the photo?
So the horizon cuts dead through the middle of the frame, which cuts it in half, right? So you want to keep your horizons in the bottom third or the top third or whatever to make the usual look unusual. Because we walk around every day seeing the horizon right across the middle of the frame. So as you're trying to work that, so it's a little bit different. But you're out on the ship at sunset. I mean, it's a nice scene and everything else. It's a little just slightly static, but then the processing, takes me out of it a little bit.
Okay, next photo.
Money.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, night and day.
Yeah.
Literally.
If this was the same shooter that did this, then yeah. But yeah, absolutely.
But like, way to, just sit there and work the light and just slowing your shutter down.
Yeah.
Just enough where, your person's perfectly tack, and then you kind of get this movement of the ocean that's all dreamy and creamy over there. Mm-hmm. But it's like, this is a way to work a scene.
You can hear the water. You know what I'm saying? That's what you want. I mean, I love it. I mean, and 2, if this is part of the same package, when you're having those 2 so similar sitting there, one negates the other, and you got to put your strongest forward. But money shot. Like I wish I would have shot this.
Next photo.
I love the art of
the use
noir.
of light here is very
or the
good.
lack of.
Yes.
Speaks about emptiness.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're going to have a technical difficulty.
Oh, there they are.
Oh, there it goes.
Just go in tighter. You got good sense in the eye. There's a little bit of distraction, light, and some different things that are going on. The words, the patch, these things. But for me, I just want it to be in tighter. I like the faces and the eyes and everything else. There's no context to what's really going on. You get the dummy gun, but even still, I would have came in a little bit tighter. I don't think you even need the top right-hand portion or the red popping out here. Just working that in.
Melissa?
Yeah, I feel like this middle distance is maybe a comfort level for a lot of people, and they either don't want to get tighter or they don't want to
back up, which
they don't
probably
wanna
even
back up.
help even more to give context to this frame is backing up.
For me, it's one or the other.
Yeah, one or the other. Yeah, you're right.
Because as a civilian, I don't know what's going on here.
Oh,
I
that's
just
true.
learned the term dummy gun.
Well, I don't even know if that's an official term for anything. It was a thing that came off the top of my head.
I was kind of questioning what was going on here.
Yeah.
And really needed a caption to understand this image. But
True that.
yeah, I think this is one of those chances as a photojournalist you shoot this frame, then you take a few steps back, then you take a few steps forward, and you work the heck out of a situation like this to kind of find where that most compelling image is. And usually it's not where you start. And for me, I wanted more or less. This in between was just this sort of weird netherworld for me.
That's a great point. And 2, from your perspective, I look at this and I'm like, okay, exercise in a boat,
Yeah.
And absolutely. So, giving yourself a sense of context and remembering that that we get caught up in shooting this, but make your images storytelling. So you got to be careful of that. As a detail or anything else going in a supporting image. That works, but backing out to give it a sense of story would be better here.
Next photo.
Yeah, solid.
That's also a demi-gun, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, great light. Just that look. I mean, like I said, moments can be really small. That sort of arched eyebrow, look out the window. I mean, I get that it's a training exercise and you've got all the elements that sort of come together there.
Can't go wrong with that window or door light. Yep.
What do you think of the hands?
Well, they give a sense of, the texture, the dirtiness, and, the cut-off gloves. I mean, it's cool. pushed into the frame, so they're a little, enlarged, but it's okay. It works. But you go immediately for this, you go right into the face, and you get that feeling of, something's about to go down.
With my dummy gun.
With my dummy gun. Taking this exercise serious.
Next photo.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, I mean, again, you see something like this and you respond to something like this, like, don't hesitate to go tighter.
Yeah.
I look at this and the entire left side of the frame for me is a little distracting. Your eye always tends to go to the brightest spot in the image. If you eliminate that, it becomes a much stronger frame to me.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's just putting on your 70 to 200 and really cleaning it up. I feel like those droplets on the glasses, and if this photographer had maybe dropped down just a little bit, you'd get their reflection out of the glasses. But great frame, it made me want to know. It made me want to read the caption. It made me ask questions of it, which I think a good photo does a lot of times.
Yeah, he's kind of trapped, in a sense, a little bit here, going in tighter. The freckles and the droplets on the work together well, just graphically. It's a good gesture, looking up, things are good here, just your background is a little, is distracting. And then of course, I'm going to point them out because it's, that burning down that one corner too becomes very obvious in a situation like this. So eliminate all that and get in tight, eyes, nose, and teeth. And it would really be, an impactful portrait.
So when you're talking about burning down the edges, what does that mean?
The photographer's going in post and they're burning down the edges of the photograph. So initially, the purpose of it is to make your subject pop a little bit more by, darkening the edges and pushing everything else forward. But when you're doing it, and you're doing it in a sense like this, where I have this super bright spot right here in the bottom, and then on the top it's dark, the eye knows something's up. Like it doesn't look essentially normal. This photographer makes great frames. I think that they just need a little bit help on and mentorship on the processing of their photographs, and then just getting with a mentor to work in those scenes. We've seen from this photographer a set of portraits. I mean, portrait, essentially. And I love that they're working and getting in with people. Just getting a good mentor and a good editor to help you with this stuff will take you a long way and take this photographer probably to the next level.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't fly in the real world.
No.
And this is something as simple as it seems that people get fired from newspapers for, that will never work for magazines again because they get called out for this, because you start to question, like, oh, if they're doing this, what else are they doing? Are they adding something or removing something? It's like my images are, I don't touch them.
Not on that
Basic
level.
levels and curves, I shoot in RAW and I bring some highlights down, and that's about it. But again, when you start to notice the manipulation and how you're trying to trick people, that's when people get caught, and that's when careers end. So, when in doubt, leave it out.
Yeah, and it's just in this situation, not necessarily saying that the photographer's manipulating, but just heavy-handed, and I think it's more of an education sense. But when my eye goes directly to under the ear, you see the gray on the ship is a completely different color than everything else in the background scene because they forgot to tone down that one section, but they did tone down the corners. Again, it becomes a distraction. So, but in taking away from what essentially your photograph is right there in the center, like you see it, you're capturing it. Just let it be. Yeah.
Next photo.
I mean, this photographer sees and uses light.
I know,
well. I love the sort of white paper is like a bounce card there. Again, for me, is sort of the non-military voice here. Like, I love context. I want to know what's happening. I want to know what this room looks like, and guys have to find a way to tell a story in a complete frame. It's nice, it's quiet, it's got this mood to it. Now tell me why.
Absolutely. It's nice for seeing a scene like this and working inside of, watching the light back up into the face. You almost want to get a little bit of the eyes or get a little bit more there, but still, I mean, for what it is, I mean, it's a nice frame. The photographer has good control of their puzzle box, and again, on the outside perspective, you need more of a storytelling context.
Next photo.
I mean, kudos to getting under the water, getting this eye, you know, light's nice under there, which is really hard to control for anyone who's shot underwater. I just appreciate the shift of perspective and taking a risk and getting in there.
I ding them for no sharks. It's a nice frame again. I wish I want to be there. Yeah, I want to be there.
Put Jaws in the
Yeah,
background.
you just got the light on the eye coming through and everything else, and you know, feels like fun.
Excellent. Next photo.
Photographers love sparks and sparky things, and you're always going to have the welding guys and the sparks, and it's there. I mean, there's good texture in this photograph and good control, but it's like it is what it is. It's just some light and some grittiness. And if you're going out to do a story on these guys and what they're doing, you know, it works. But there's not much to it outside of just, you know, pretty light and sparks. But it's got great mood and feel.
Next photo. We also love things blowing up, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids, dogs, robots, blow-ups, ninjas, they all play well.
Ninjas.
Yeah,
I haven't
babies.
seen a ninja yet.
Oh, just wait. All play well.
I mean, I liked it because I don't see this scene every day.
Me neither.
You know, and I thought just the cloud of smoke there, where I guess it's breaking the sound barrier. I don't know. Tell me what. But then actually capturing what's coming out. Like, kudos to this photographer for, you know, just perfect timing, nice light. You know, great time of day to shoot this scene.
I like down here on the bottom with all of the casings from the
sitting on the ground and everything else. Yeah, I mean, you're working great light, great time of day. You know, shooting out. I mean, it's nice. Again, the only thing that takes this to the next level is a strong human element. It doesn't even have to be strong. It just be a little bit of a human element, but still, for what it is, I mean, boom, it works.
Boom,
Pun intended.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Next photo, please.
This photo looks like one person's really into tug of war and everybody else is like, yeah, whatever. And I know that's not necessarily what's happening here, but yeah, it's a little handed on the processing, but just shifts on this would make it better. I mean, you got the leading line coming through, and you got one person that's really, you know, going for it, and then everybody else is like, God, this dude's crazy. Yeah.
I like the,
but I like
sort of repetition
I
of
like the
shapes
faces,
back
and I
there.
like the curiosity on the face of, you know, but I don't know if the person's playing to the camera or if they're just that intense. But yeah, but then, you know, little eliminations, like the white box in the background that's just glaring, you know, getting rid of stuff like that, just even coming in a little bit tighter, you know, would help off even just that one side. But those are little things that you're looking for.
And when you talk about getting rid of stuff, I'm sorry, you're obviously not talking about photoshopping it out.
Oh, no, we don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not even a thing. Just cropping it out. I mean, you don't need the white metal box that's super bright in the background, just taking away from distracting, you know, you from that side. It's going to push it right to the edge, but then I'm talking about just shifting and even moving, cropping with your feet when you're shooting this and changing the perspective a little bit so that stuff is not there. So when you're shooting this in the frame, you're watching for things like that popping up in your background.
Yeah, I tell photographers all the time, like, shoot from the outside in. You know, scan the edges of your frame and compose accordingly. Had you moved over 6, 9, 10 inches to the left, you could have covered that white box with this guy's body. You know, if you would have gone over a few inches to the right, you would have gotten it completely out of your frame. And it's just a matter of seeing and just kind of waiting, you know, and actually, like, doing what really good photojournalists do, which is compose in camera and just wait for everything to come together. And if you look through it and something's not right, literally just a tiny little shift sometimes makes all the difference between a good photo and a great photo.
I wouldn't mind seeing this further away with the intensity, you know, in the foreground of him and then just everybody's faces in the background. There's another photograph right inside of there with all the hands on the rope with their faces of just what's happening. And looks like a pretty sweet mustache further in the back too. So, you know, look for those things. There's another picture inside of this picture.
Next photo.
Oh, back-to-back rope shots. Well played in a situation to where if you were laying this out, one thing would be cool. But in a portfolio, you got to be mindful of that. You know, that visual variety of not, you know, eliminate. What's your best rope shot, essentially, because they're going to compete against each other.
This could be a story on rope shots.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
For me, it's the thing I'll harp on about silhouettes. Like, I think you get about one good silhouette a year. It's a gimmick that's overused and easy in a way to clean up a scene and make it pretty when nothing's happening. But for a silhouette to rise above, like, just waiting for that separation, you know, between the second guy's legs, you've got two guys just kind of standing
Trapped
there.
in there. Yep.
You know, between the first guy, same thing. You know, and it's just kind of like, you just wait, you look, you see where those elements start to distract and come together. And the toning on this one feels a little, you know, I'm going to select the black point and just drop everything down. You can do this in camera, you know, you can mess with your exposure and knock that shutter speed or that aperture down to kind of get this in camera and have it look better and not like it was done in post.
Well said. I mean, again, it comes down to the separation inside of here. I think you said it all. Yeah. Lower. You know, go down 3 stops instead of, you know, vignetting the sky, the type of deal. Good job on the perspective, on getting down, on seeing something different, and trying to work the scene. I'm curious of the rest of the take, if there's just little minimal stuff where you don't have people coming out from underneath people's, you know, buttocks.
Exactly.
Cool.
Next slide. Wow.
We'll let you get away with your wide here. Yeah, no, it's, yeah, I dig it. It's got a good sense of feel, and you know what it's like to be out on this raft. It's well done for the photographer there. I want more. You're always going to want more, you know. But you know, like getting to see the faces or the person up front, waiting for them to be like, this sucks, or this, you know, or hua hua. But yeah, and then the right-hand sky on the top, it looks like the storm's rolling in when there's no storm rolling in. Be careful of that stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like I'm there and I'm in the boat with them, you know, and whether that's just the fast shutter speed catching these droplets going by and feeling like I'm completely soaked and immersed in this boat with these guys. But yeah, like you said, you know, I want just a little bit more, and it's just a face for me. It's a moment.
Yeah.
Composition's there, the light's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just wait for that moment, and it'll just make this photo absolutely amazing.
Great point of view. Photographer had fun on that day, no doubt.
Next photo.
This is harking back almost to the, you know, the smoky shot, the welding or whatever. And if this is the same, you know, photographer's stuff, it's probably one of the weaker entrants into a portfolio. I don't even see why it would need to be in the portfolio. It doesn't offer any context to it except for a fire hat and a light. So there's nothing really there. There's no moment. There's no, and it's for me, I just wouldn't have it in a portfolio.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, there's nothing keeping me in it. You know, this composition is slightly off. There's no moment. The exposure's off. When I get to a scene, like, I respond to light usually first. And I'm always looking, you know, like, where's the light happening in this room? And I would just be working the heck out of that back door,
yes,
you know, where you've got this like blue light and this, you know, whether it's a light from somebody's flashlight or whatever. But scan it, you know, just figure out what those elements are. And like, for me, good photo is light, moment, composition. You know, if you have one of those things in a frame, like, it's probably a decent frame. You get 2 in there and it's a good frame. But you get all 3, and those are your winners. Those are your portfolio pictures, you know. But you've got to at least get something. And for me, you know, this photographer was there, and just not seeing.
Yeah, And I imagine they shot it because of the blue door, and then realized, like, I mean, that's a scene that if you're there in that room, like, you're waiting for somebody to crawl into, and you're working something there. I understand why they made the picture. I understand what they were thinking and seeing, but it's just not it doesn't hold up, in a sense of they didn't get it.
I mean, the cool thing with being a photographer, a lot of times, like, I mean, when I was a newspaper photographer, I shot the same parade every year. You know, I shot the same back-to-school event every start of the school year. You know, and with you guys, I imagine, you know, you're seeing the same drills. You know, you're seeing similar situations every time, and it's just one of those things to file away. You know, when you look through your take, and it's a bunch of almost, and you say, like, that back door, that's where the light was.
Light, yeah.
Next time, that's where I'm going to be. You know, so I really hope this photographer kind of uses this as like the benchmark for what could be a really great, really compelling image.
Yeah.
Next photo.
Maybe it is a series on ropes.
It's a little too wide.
Yeah.
Sometimes that wide angle works, and sometimes it's just distorting and distracting. I think this is the latter for me here. I like that feeling of closeness and like I'm in this scene, though. I just want a little tension or a little bit more from it.
Yeah, and you could probably get that off the guy off the right-hand side, the way, the left-hand side. It's there. You sense something that's there, but yeah, just bring a little bit more.
What's happening here? Like with the sort of moisture on the lens, or you think it's just spray coming up off the boat or the...
Yeah, or shooting
there.
Through something that on the outside, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's either they're going through glass or a window or something because it's happening on their lens itself. But you're right.
Is it distracting?
It adds a sense of, you know, like it adds some grittiness and feel to it, but it is something that you do notice, especially the way that the sun is gone out. Like I don't think it distracts in that sense. I think more the wide angle and the over-processing distracts for me than it does I don't want to keep harping, but, you know, but the sky and the concrete and everything, it's not balanced out, so.
Next photo.
I mean, money.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn.
You know, I'm sure you would say
Get
something
on a
about...
boat, pull out, light paint a little bit on the ship. No, it's, you know, gosh.
But man, that Milky Way,
I want to be there.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. Well done for getting out late and going and doing it and going a step above and beyond and making something that, you know, you knew you could capture and, you know, that everybody else on the ship would absolutely love. It's a great photo. Yeah, in a perfect world, you want like a hatch or something opening to give, you know, another layer to this. But still, it is what it is, and it's money.
Stunning.
Yeah, it's a pretty picture.
Good job on that.
And, you know, I love the longer exposure and just letting that thing streak across the sky, whether it's a meteor or a plane or what. It just kind of adds this little element of mystery to it.
A little shooting star. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done.
I want to be there. I don't want that deployment though.
No, no.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Next photo. Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this photographer's seeing light and responding to it in really cool ways.
I don't understand why though they would leave that light right on the edge of your frame right there on the left-hand side.
Just crop in 1 millimeter.
Yeah, just lose that.
You could do that in post, just a little crop.
Yeah, just a little crop there to really not bring it out. And then of course the horizon, you know, when you're setting the shot up and everything else, watch for that horizon cutting off your frame, like up or down.
And if that was lower thirds,
money.
You get all of this extra
the
light
in the
streak
sky,
up there.
Yeah. And that's the way that, you know, shifted this way, you know, down lower, you know, water's in the bottom third, the horizon's on the bottom third, and then you're just this massive sky, you know, but still, kudos for getting out there and making stuff happen.
Next photo.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
graphic, fun, like it's, you know.
Clean.
Yeah.
But
No, it's just, it's it serves its purpose. I mean, it's when you're going out to get this going out the back of the Osprey. I mean, this is what you're looking for. You know, giant ship with, you know, in the juxtaposed to the small little, you know, human coming out the back of it. It's graphically it looks nice. It's a nice photo. It doesn't take you anywhere but that.
And the non-military perspective that I'll bring is like, I like photos that ask those questions of me, you know, and here I'm just going like, what's happening? Because I don't see this scene every day.
No.
You know, and just really well done. Nothing to distract me from it.
No, it's really well done. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and a lot in it just that makes me wonder what's happening and makes me want to read the cut line.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Next photo.
Oh.
Ah.
I thought this was a great way to shoot this scene.
Hell yeah. I mean, yeah.
You know, again, it's one of those things that great expression, you know, light hitting this face, you know, this sort of grimace, you know, the dirt and hay and whatnot on his forehead there, you know, and then you start to look a little deeper and you're like, wait, those are boots on the shoulders. What's happening here? You know, and it's one of those things that I really enjoyed because it made me stop and it made me ask, like, what's happening here? And it didn't give me all that information at once. It didn't spoon feed it to me.
Right. That's good.
Next photo.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's money.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Photographer's very graphic, you know, in a sense of, you know, how they're composing their frames, all with a sense of purpose. And this is a shot I wish I would have seen. You know, you feel what it's like to be out there when you're in control of the light like that, and you know, just the right time, right place, right perspective. Everything I think works on this one, and I dig it.
Yeah, being able to see and use light like that like really creates a mood, you know, and just like perfect time of day for it. Light inside the you know, cabin there, just kind of just giving you a little sense that these guys are either going out or coming back from a mission, you know, and it's a gorgeous frame.
Yeah, absolutely. And it still has a strong curiosity factor to it, even though you know it's dudes on a plane. Like it really does. It like, because it looks different. It looks, you know, for the common eye of people walking up to this, they're going to take a little while to really understand like what's happening here, and that's nice.
Next photo. Thoughts?
Sky and water.
Sky and water.
Yeah, that's it. It's
I think the hand's in focus and maybe not the head.
the helmet on the top part, you know, it has its tag like right above. I need more to this one, to you know, whether it's half in the water, half out, or something. Like the gesture and everything is just, it's like in the middle. It's an almost there.
I mean, kudos for getting in the water,
Yeah.
and trying something different,
Yeah.
and not being afraid to, you know, to get in there. And then it's when you're out there next time, how do you take this one step further?
Yeah.
And yeah, split level would be great.
Yeah.
Maybe just a little context, or just sitting back and waiting for that moment, you know. But yeah, this is an in between.
Yeah.
It's an almost.
Almost.
And unfortunately, if this is the same photographer, because I think we're going through portfolios
Right.
here, you know, like that photographer's shown us that they know how to use light and see moments and compose really well. And, you know, unfortunately, the benchmark's been set for how good this work should be. You need to do that in every frame.
Every frame in your portfolio should, you know, evoke that same, you know, emotion and sense throughout the portfolio, because this is one shot that if it's sitting in there with everything else, it's the one takeaway, like, why is this here?
Yeah. It brings the whole thing down. Yeah.
Next photo.
I mean,
The
it is
Navy
what it
pulls a lot
is.
of ropes.
They do. Yeah.
It's really been shown throughout these photographs.
Somebody
Cliche as
do
it
a
is,
story
yeah.
on the rope pulling
Yeah,
next
just
time.
ropes everywhere. You're seeing this. You're seeing the reflections out of the water and everything else. Like it's an almost as well. Like you can really work this scene to really pull out something that looks unusual, and that's what would set this to the, you know, take this to the next level. It's right now it's just it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's clean. I like the
Yeah.
sort of leading line. I like the diagonal through it. But there were so many elements in this that could have made it rise up. And again, it's just making this shot and then starting to take those risks and saying like, oh, it's wet on the ground. What are these puddles doing? What does this reflection look like? I also feel like the exposure is just a tad under,
Yeah.
you know, and maybe if it was exposed perfectly, you know, you would get a little bit more of that separation in the puddles at the bottom.
This is another weird shoot through or something that's in front of the frame, in front of the lens, that you see these, you know, these vertical lines coming through, and I don't know what that's about, but an almost.
Next photo.
I mean, super cool.
Yeah. If it's the same photographer that, you know, you're coming out the back of the Osprey guy coming out, now helicopter coming out, you got to look at those things in your portfolio and decide, you know, which one's the stronger image and which one's going to go forward. As a package, as a portfolio, when you're putting that up, you want to have that variety of work where nothing conflicts against each other. If they're both saying the same thing, you know, it's going to be like one or the other. Why did you, you know, leave that slot for another great image to come in? But you know, nice frame, nice feel.
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly compelling image. You know, if I had to pick on it at all, I'd say just get away from the center weighted composition.
Yeah.
You know, like turn that center dot off or put it somewhere else in your, you know, in your viewfinder, just to make an image more interesting. You know, like you've got to compose it sometimes and not let the camera think for you when you pick it up. You know, and maybe if this was the helicopter's a little left or a little right in this, it would add some tension, like it was going in or coming out, and you know,
Yeah, and the scene's beautiful. You know, in a perfect world, you'd be in the water on this one, and there would be something in the foreground, and it would be give more sense of, you know, perspective. But it's for what it is. It's a great frame, and just again lose the center. You know, center weighted.
Next photo. Oh, wow.
the lights bother you on the right?
You know they do.
I mean,
Edge of the frame, edge of the frame. Like you should never have anything sitting on the edge of your frame that is gonna, your eye, you know, watch it, you know, gets in here and then it just follows because everybody's looking and the car's this way and then boom, and then you get stuck with the town that's out in the distance or the base or whatever it is, and it's sitting there. But it's, when you take away something like that, then it leaves the eye back into the frame a little bit more. And but if you have that hot object sitting right there on the edge, it's a distraction, and it's just a simple cure.
What about the over here on the left-hand side of the frame? What do we think?
With the motion and the little light sticks and everything else. I mean, these guys are out watching something happening at night, some night ops or whatever, some trying to take some pictures with their phones. I don't think they're taking selfies.
You never know.
You never know.
I'd love to see those iPhone photos of this guy, though.
Yeah.
I like that there were two people who were perfectly still in this.
And that's what draws you. And it's composed for that, too. Yeah. God, I wish the car wasn't white. I mean, you know, but what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you don't need the car at all.
Yeah,
maybe it's
you
just
don't,
a bunch of heads and hands holding phones and this epic sky.
Yeah. But way to work the scene as a photographer out there, working the scene, bringing something unusual to pique your curiosity. And it would be nice to see something crazy coming out of the sky too. But
I love the humanity in an image like this.
Yeah.
You know, as subtle as it is, it's like I love seeing stuff away from the action, away from the expected image, and it's like, here's a bunch of guys, like you said, out on some sort of, you know, nighttime operation, and they all stop to look.
Yeah, they're all digging it.
I love up here on the top on the left-hand side. It looks like, is that the Big Dipper?
That's the Little Dipper.
Little Dipper.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, the sky is money. I mean, it's one of the beauties of being out there in the middle of nowhere sometimes, is it...
Big sky.
Especially as a photographer, it's like a whole different playground.
Next photo.
I want to kind of see more on this. It's just it's just an almost for me, like it's a supporting element to something in a story or anything else, but yeah, I want to see more of what's going on. The gestures are just a little bit off. There's nothing that's really grabbing me, and the perspective is a little off for me too.
I mean, I can tell you this is from a story.
Okay.
I don't know.
I love the faces.
I don't know if that changes things
Yeah.
for you. You know, once you'll see it all together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just kind of lacking. And you were there. You just need to wait. You know, and the interaction and the moment just aren't quite
aren't there. Yeah.
there. But it's like you're seeing this, and I love this expression. You know, and the guy on the left, and these eyes cutting back to the person.
And that's what draws you in. But then it just needs a little bit more.
Yeah. When you see something like this, just wait. Just work it, you know. And
You want me to do what?
I think that's the other thing, though. Like when I go to a pep rally or something, like there's always that one kid like screaming their head off, and you walk in there and you see this kid screaming their head off, and you're like, oh crap, I missed it. That person, you know, human ability is amazing to like the repetition of things. And if you get that one person that gives you a good face, a good expression once, stick with them. Like it's going to happen again. You know, and you didn't miss it if you work it even harder and you catch something, you know, that makes this frame even better.
The one thing I do kudos to is a little micro separation between the faces right there, the one guy in the back and the one in front, how they form around each other.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next photo.
See, my eye goes right to the words. I don't know what it is, AOD or anything else, the white lettering on the canteen, but that draws me right into something like this, where I more want to see like that dude obviously in the right's like, this is about to suck.
Yeah. Is that a yawn he's stifling?
Yeah. Whether he's bored, it's a hurry up and wait moment with these guys, or in this training or anything else. I mean, it's you got the repetition of the camo and the guns and the hands and everything else, but here I just want to see the faces, and I want to see like. But I mean, it works for what it is, but the focus and everything is right there on the canteen. But I want more of a feeling from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, light, moment, composition. You know, like you're seeing the light. You're out there at a great time of day to capture this. Now you just need to compose it, and you need to wait for that moment.
Yeah, just a moment. It's got good graphical repetition and everything else, but it just needs a moment.
Next photo. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the picture's in here.
It is in there.
I don't know if it's just coming down a little from the top. Background is a little distracting. But I like that things are starting to come together. There's a separation between the people in the background and the people in the foreground. Could have been a little stronger, but I like seeing a little context as well. So I'm torn. You know,
yeah, I dig this one in a sense of I would have just kind of cropped it in. I would have lost the top portion of it. There's nice layers here going into the the foreground with the boots in front, the middle ground of the guy here, and then the background where you have these other things that are going on that kind of carry you in the frame. Like keeping things coming across the hands, down across these boots on the other side, framing that guy up a little bit more. It just brings you in a little bit better. And I know why they shot this picture. The guy in the center there needs to pop out just a little bit more. But yeah, it's an almost, and even just some crops would help this one. But in the perspective change, just a little bit would help it a little bit more.
Next photo.
But good on seeing layers like that.
So I don't think this one's as effective as the last one. I like what's happening in the center there. You know, it's like drawing a map in the dirt and, coming up with some sort of game plan. But there's so many other things that distract me from what I should be looking at.
Yeah. I mean
I'm noticing, around here we've got the perimeter that's being guarded for that. But maybe it's my non-photographer eye, but
sure.
I want to see what's going on in the circle.
Yeah, but you've got this like person dragging trash or
yeah,
bags
that's the
in the
first person
background.
you see, right? Because it's the white object in the background with those, neon green striped track pants.
I think you walk you know, 2 feet to the right, and you've got a better silhouette of this guy with the gun guarding the perimeter.
Right.
You've got all
Push
the
that in the forward of the frame.
you
forward
know,
of frame,
the wire in the background, and then you
Yeah.
get a little clearer shot of what's happening in
Yeah.
that circle.
So coming over and down and
Yeah.
putting them more in the foreground, and then losing everything on this side, and you still get the barbed wire and, you know, everything else.
Next photo.
Almost.
And almost, yeah.
I mean, as small as it is, I love the smile on the guy
smile,
being
yeah.
carried. I
Yeah.
love that it's, you know that it's his training exercise. The expressions are so totally different that it just kind of makes me laugh. And, again, it's one of those photos that I want to read the cut line. I want to know what's happening. And, you know.
Next photo.
Just a little bit more. It's switching over top, or, you know, something, yeah. On this one, you get a sense they're coming in, they're checking the pulse, they're checking on the individual, the hands are, you know, caressing, if you will. But
Is that what's happening?
Yeah, we do that a lot in the military. Simple
massage
caresses,
therapy?
simple
Is this
caresses to make sure you're alive. But yeah, just changing and framing those hands coming down into the face, you know, different perspective.
Yeah, I think a lot of times with situations like these, like, we have this natural human reaction to, like, not want to disturb the scene, not want to interrupt, not want to impose. They know you're there. You've obviously been following them for a while. They know what you're doing with your camera. Take 30 seconds to step in there and
just
put your
right over
camera
top.
over
Yeah.
top, or, you know, change it up, and just, you can tell people, you know, like, hey, I'm going to get in close for 10 seconds. If I'm in your way, let me know. You know, and just literally 2 frames of that, boom, you're out. And it would have just made such a better image. This shows me like some timidity and, you know, just not wanting to get in there. They saw something, but they didn't go far enough and execute it.
Next photo.
Why'd you cut those feet off? I mean, scan the edges of your frame, and, you know, like, you can't cut body parts off in weird ways, you know, especially in a drill that's all about body parts. But for me, it's slightly distracting, you know, like, you're seeing this thing and you're just not composing well.
Yeah, I mean, you're using a clean background by, you know, changing the perspective to have that, you know, but work it even more up top. And try to get everything in, and then put it to context with everything else that's happening. But yeah.
Next photo.
Here's where, I mean, you've got a great scene walking into this, and you've got a great face, and you've got this gesture that we all recognize and everything else. But it's too just, how do I say, it's like pedestrian, in a sense of you're just walking up and boom, and you're not working this. And I know that it happens quick, you know, unless they may be standing there for something where they got to stand for a while. But really work this scene. You get these textures in the background. You've got no reason that you should have the light down in here on the bottom, like working to eliminate those distractions. And you've got this beautiful face with the contrast of the red hat and everything else. Like, really work that scene and get in tight, and then work it back out, like, if you can. But if I have something like this and it's just a moment that I'm working into, I'm immediately going into the face. I'm gonna grab that one first. This one seems like it's like I got my 50. I walked around the corner. And then boom, boom, and I who knows? I'm editorializing in that situation, but really work in to capture that, because I love the eyes, I love the feeling on the face, and just really wanted that one to work in a little bit better. But scan your frame, because those all the other elements are just taking you right out of the picture.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, like, everybody fancies themselves a photographer, and what sets photojournalists apart from photographers is that ability to tell the story and to get in there and to not be pedestrian, you know, to really make a compelling image out of this and see it for how special it could have been. You know, and if you bring back a photo that anybody standing there could have picked up their iPhone or their point and shoot and just, you know, not put a lot of thought into it, you didn't do your job today. Yeah. And we all have those days, but it's like, I think that's what makes a really, it's the distinction for me, and what makes a professional photographer, a professional photojournalist, what they are, you know, and not just a photographer.
Yeah, if they had the opportunity, and again, don't even know if they had it. It could have been a split-second turnaround from something else, and they saw this, and they, for the split second, they got it. Even a crop would help this. But if you walk into a scene like this, you really working that dark background with the light, the way it's hitting, and you really make a nice portrait out of this. It'd be money.
Next photo.
It's like all the elements are there. Ooh.
That looks cold.
It's like a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long, cold
Because
walk.
you know those rucks aren't light.
The word pedestrian, right? So you're standing on the side of the road, and this kind of takes, so you're standing right there on the side of the road, and you've got all these elements that are happening, playing right out in front of you, and you snap the picture. But you didn't make a picture, you know what I'm saying? So you took this one, and you've got the elements going in, diminishing, you know, into the background and everything else, which is nice, but there's an opportunity here to really make a picture of just changing perspective and the angle of the camera or anything else, and then getting in. I really want to see, you know,
Faces.
you do in this. You want that one person looking back, or, you know, whatever to connect with. And you get a good sense of feeling. And it's even better when you're dealing with just shooting into the horde going up in front right there. It's nice. Or getting at a lower perspective, you know. But it's just right there. It's just like standing height, boom, making this as they go by, or taking this as they go by. But really start working it to make a picture.
Yeah. I do appreciate the context.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You know, and you've got these really cool elements, and you just need to wait for them to just sort of work better for you in a frame. I mean, you've got this epic landscape. Like, you can't not take a bad photo there.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
You know, but like Benny was saying, like, how do you make a great photo? Especially when you're given some choice things like this. Like, you're not always this lucky. you know? Yeah, just work the scene, and just ask yourself, you know, how you can really bring all these elements together, and foreground, background, moment, you know.
Just needs a little bit more, but it's a nice frame.
Next photo.
The eye does it, huh? Yeah. Got them crystal blue eyes. For me, coming in on, you know, the background, of course, is the distracting factor at that time of day and everything else, and just simply eliminating that by even coming in off to the side and just cropping into the photograph. Center weighted, dead center eye, you know, guy with gun, just, you either getting in real tight, or you're trying to find a way to make it look unusual. But the background is a distraction, just with the light that time of day.
How often do you see shots like this? Like, is
A
this
lot.
a common?
Yeah, a lot. And maybe that's, you know, we see this a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see them eyes a lot.
No, I mean, you know, it definitely stops me, but yeah, I imagine that this is one of those tropes that you sort of come back to as something you guys see a lot of. So in those situations, you just got to ask yourself as a photojournalist, like, how do I make it rise above?
Yeah, I understand why you shot the frame, and it's, you know, everything else. We can't control the time of day. The photographer throughout this, if this is all the same photographer and everything here, has done a pretty good job on actually controlling their camera and their exposures and everything else. We're not nitpicking, you know, a lot of technical things. It's more about waiting for the moment and then changing a perspective to give more of a sense of, you know, feeling of, again, what it feels like to be there, instead of just what it looks like to shoot it from the outside.
Next photo.
I'm pretty sure that frame doesn't look like that.
Yeah, no, I remember this being a really nice vertical portrait of this guy just standing there in this group, and the light was gorgeous, the look was intense.
Intense, yeah. It was like the Undertaker just standing on top, like just so good.
But I actually remember commenting on this one in the portfolio, because it was just
so it's
showing me
essentially
something a
just
little bit
taking a
different.
vertical and stretching it into a horizontal for here. Yeah.
For here.
dude's not in regulations right now. Yeah, those shoulders are mighty wide. But yeah, no, I dig it, and like to be out there in the morning, like when you're out shooting those exercises, you got the morning when the light's good, and in the evening when the light's good, and you're trying to work the best you can during the day. When you walk out and you see those trees and you see the light coming in like this, and
the steam coming off the guys, yeah, money.
Yeah, you know it's gonna be a good day.
Yeah.
Next photo.
No. Yeah.
It's like the most epic movie night you'll ever see.
It does harken back to a drive-through, right? Like, yeah.
Yep.
Or drive-in. What do you drive-in movie? Yeah.
Drive-in movie.
Yeah.
Are you even old enough to remember those?
Yeah. Yeah. Sadly, yeah.
Sadly, yeah.
No, I miss those things. What are you talking about?
I mean, the composition's lacking for me, but it's, again, you know, it's like the other star watching images we've seen. It's like, I like seeing this side of the military personally.
Absolutely.
I like knowing that there's this awe factor and that it's not all, you know, hoorah and guns, and you know, and it's like somebody stopped to actually appreciate and enjoy this moment, and I'm glad the photographer did as well.
Yeah, when I was teaching, even at DINFOS, one of the things that I regret about my military career, you know, progressing as a photographer, because you only get, you know, I guess better with experience, is those early deployments. Looking back, going back, I shot all the action. I got all the guns, I've got all the booms, I've got all those things. But I look back now and I miss all the card playing, all the sitting around at night, all the things that were really what it felt like to be deployed. You know, the late nights at the gym or midnight chow, or these things that, you know, those moments where we just get together in the suck, that type of deal. And this is what I appreciate about what this photographer's, you know, doing here, and some of the others have done as well. It's like they're capturing that. Like, they're going to be able to, with images like this that remind you of what it feels like to be out there when you were there, when you look back on it later on, are going to be the images that last. Not the guys with the guns and everything else, but it was like those images of feeling of that sense of place. And I agree with Melissa, like, compositionally this could work, and you got the, you know, the roar come in there, and you could have framed them up a little bit differently or anything else. But I really appreciate, you know, images like this. And I encourage everybody in the military to shoot more of this. Don't just shoot what you're told to do in the exercises and everything else, but carry your camera with you at night and capture what it's like to be on a deployment. What does it feel like? The card playing, the everything else, like the having fun, the 2 non-alcoholic beers you're able to get when you're deployed, or whatever it is. Like, you know, capture that stuff, because those are the stories you tell when you come back. You don't tell the stories of the other stories, just kind of fade off, but the stories of the friendship and the camaraderie, and, you know, how great it was or how bad it sucked. Those are the stories you tell. Capture those.
Right.
Yeah.
It humanizes these missions.
Yeah.
A lot, I think.
Well, when I think back at a lot of my deployments, and I think about all my friends and the cards and just having fun and, you know, smoking cigars and all kinds of things, I have very little pictures of that. I wish I would have shot them. Yeah.
Next photo.
Yeah.
Harkens back to the bike, but this one is just, it doesn't do anything for me for a portfolio.
Yeah, it's tough. It's I get that you're trying something different, you know, visually, but you know, the light's harsh.
Yeah.
The everything's just a touch off. You know, and I think for a pan to work too, it's got to be, you know, maybe it was just the waist up and that sort of weirdly thumbs up gesture, if that's what's happening there. I mean, I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
Everything feels just a touch off, but mostly technically.
Yeah, get with a good editor. You know, for the photographer, don't let your work go forward with it just being you or some of the folks that were with you in that sense. Get with somebody that, you know, can go through these images and kind of point out some of these things for your portfolio. An image like this, if it's the same photographer, completely takes down everything else that they, you know, everything competes on that portfolio together. So this one doesn't work. It's not a portfolio image.
And there is that adage that you're usually judged by your weakest image.
Absolutely. That's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when you start to look at portfolios of like equally good quality, you start to look at the clunkers, you know, and you really do start to nitpick. So yeah, get some feedback, you know, from people that you trust, and if it's not not at that level that you've already set, you know,
Yeah.
and the bar that you've already set for yourself, then don't include it. You know, you've got to, what do they say? Drown your puppies, kill your babies. You know, I mean, sometimes you've got to let photos go, and I know that we all get attached to images because we're like, oh, that was a really hard image to make, or I was out there early and I watched that light and I tried this pan and it was so cool. And sometimes you need that perspective from someone else to say like, yeah, it's cool. It doesn't quite work.
It's not going to work
though.
there.
Next photo.
I mean, center weighted, lights harsh.
Yeah.
I want more context.
Yeah, so something like this, you're getting against this wall on this side, you're raising the camera up because you're paying attention to the light and how it hits and how harsh it is, but you can shoot against the darkness here, and you have enough bounce light inside of here that's coming off the side of her face that you're going to be able to make a good exposure of her. So, you know, so coming up on this side and shooting down into the frame, or even what more is happening in the background, I mean, you get a sense they're taking junk or anything else, but it just doesn't work, and that harsh light right there on the left-hand side really pulls you out of the image. And then, of course, when you got words, you know, and everybody loves Marines, but you know, just be mindful of words in your images.
Yeah, I think sometimes too, if you know, if backgrounds are messy and things aren't working, that is your chance to go tight.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe it's just the eyes and the mask. You know,
And
in
the
a
ray of light that's
situation
coming
like
in on the
this.
side or something. Yeah.
You know, or maybe that's your chance to step back 10 feet and really give context. If I'm remembering right, this was like a hurricane recovery
stuff,
cleanup type thing, and you know, you don't quite get that here.
Yeah.
So you've got to find a way to tell that story a little bit better.
Next photo.
I mean, it's cool.
It's cool. It's pretty. It's right on the horizon, which makes it kind of, you know, you want to recrop or, you know, readjust this one a little bit, but it's sitting right dead center. There's not much you can do when changing your perspective inside of an aircraft. It's a pretty picture. But yeah, even just coming in a little bit tighter and just changing the perspective a little bit with a crop.
All you have to do is lift your camera up
yeah,
just a few inches.
Yeah.
But I love being above the clouds.
I love
here,
above the clouds,
and just
yeah,
seeing those
absolutely.
peaks popping up above the clouds too.
So angle down or angle up, you know, just to change it. So you just be mindful of the horizon in your photographs.
Next photo.
So yeah, this is a story. This is like an Osprey story. And I like that this photographer took you inside, took you outside, gave you all these different perspectives on it. I like this little look. I like the one hovering in the background.
Yeah.
You know, I think it added something to the package just to kind of see that human element with some really cool machines, you know.
No, absolutely.
Next photo.
This is probably like the one clunker, you know, it's just, everything could have been composed a little bit better. The photographer could have thought through this. I mean, they've already shown that they can compose, that they see light, that that they recognize these moments, and this just feels very, very pedestrian.
Yeah. It was more like they were attracted to the night on the tail than they were about, you know, what's happening in the photograph. But yeah, get the camera on the ground, get it up. Change the perspective in here. You're right. It's just kind of clunked in together. Like get back wide or work it a little bit different.
I think that's a good point, though. Like if the photographer was looking at this night and that's what you're responding to visually, work it.
Work it to where you
put on a
you
70
put them
to
in there
200,
yeah, exactly.
lay down behind them,
Yeah.
and just get like one person going onto the plane with this night in the background.
Yeah.
You know, like. That's a cool visual element, you know, it could be really graphic if composed well. And so if, as a photographer, if you do respond to something like that, if you do see this mural in the background, work it, you know, compose first and then let people come into that frame and let that moment come together.
Yeah.
Next photo.
I mean, it is what it is.
It's a supporting element to this story, but there's no action, interaction, or reaction inside this frame that would really take it to the next level. It's just kind of a static and a pretty static at that. I mean, it's nice out there, but but yeah, you still need something. You still need a moment.
Yeah. Moment, or I think maybe a different time of day
Yeah.
might have helped, you know, whether it's dusky and it's the light of the, you know, all the instrument panels that are lighting up their faces. I mean, you need something to kind of elevate this and take
Yeah.
it one step further.
I wish I had that kind of control. We're only going to fly at sunset from now on.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
but yeah.
You don't, I thought you had
No,
that
we don't get
power
that.
here.
No. Yeah.
Man,
Only so much we can do.
call in a favor.
But yeah, even if it's just like a, you know, fist bump or, you know, whatever, like something to add, you know, to, and it's tough. I mean, those exposures can be tough too, because it's not, you know, you're working, depending if they're shaded, and then it's the light, the way the light's working, it's, they can be harsh, but just need something.
Next photo.
Pretty.
Yeah. That's cool.
I mean, you say we need a good shot of the ospreys, you know, like this is what you bring back. Like, clouds are nice to add a good sense of texture and softness to what is a hardcore marine machine. Like it's, I like it.
Yeah, I love the color palette,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
the time of
Yeah,
day
yeah,
and the quality of the light. But I also like, we've been talking about, you know, it's the small things. I love the separation.
Separation, yeah.
I love that none of the, you know, blades are hitting each other there, you know, just far enough apart where they separate, and that makes it rise above.
Oh yeah, this is a wallpaper and a poster in a lot of places. Yeah, good shot.
Next photo.
Human element.
Yeah.
Somebody coming out of that door, going
Yeah.
into it would have made this.
And you see the light hitting inside of the, you know, co-pilot sitting there, and it's nice. That's nice light. Frame that shot, get that shot, right? But yeah, you just need something in or out of that door, because you're leaving this gaping hole in your photograph, right? So it's you just want an element coming in out of there, and then.
I also want perspective.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like
another.
this looks like a. Can we cuss here? This looks like a really big, badass machine, you know. And it's like I want to see like this little tiny human, you know, and I want to know the scale of what this thing is. I haven't seen that a lot in this particular story yet.
Next photo.
It's the right side of the frame that's not working for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, everything is money on the left. That soft light coming in from the back. It's a giant light box back there. But the right side is the perspective. You know, over the shoulder, you feel like you're in there. I get that sense, but there's nothing there. And it's this nice little quiet moment of him sitting on the side against the machine is nice. And it's, you know, takes you back though to the other shot of him looking out with the plane in the background. And then it's like, do I really need both of these? They really kind of say the same thing.
Yeah.
Next photo.
Some flooding.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a great situation to see things happen. You know, you're out with these guys that are, you know, either taking water out to people or doing some sort of, you know, relief work after a big storm. You know, just, you know, those little moments and those human elements are gonna happen. You're in a great place for it, just wait. You know, I would love to see this photographer's entire take from it, because my
Pretty
guess
sure
is
that
this wasn't the best frame.
Yeah.
You know, even just handing a bottle of water down to somebody who's, you know, flooded out of their home, or, you know. I like the perspective. I like feeling like I'm there with these guys, but just wait. Just wait for that moment. That's what it's all about.
Next photo.
When you're going into an office and you have to come up with a shoot or anything else in this situation, and you have a window light, don't shoot opposite of it. Use it to your advantage. So you've got that light there, shift on the other side of it, use the light to your advantage, and then turn the frames backwards, because you're just leaving this giant white object sitting in the back of your frame, and it's hard to even look at the photographs with that being back there. So a simple shift of the portraits on the other side, you know, catching slightly on the window light and then him sitting at the desk is one thing. That's still a static portrait. It's, you know, not the way that for a portfolio, the image that I would have in a portfolio. But again, work that scene a little bit better in that sense. Yeah, that's just a common thing, or just a quick shout out to just work that light. I mean, you get a beautiful window light, use it to your advantage. Photograph wise, I don't know if it's part of a story we get into, but it just doesn't work for a portfolio image.
Yeah, I think you know, as a photojournalist, like the one time you can control a situation, the one time you can ask somebody to do something for you,
point. Yeah.
is a portrait.
Yeah.
And so when I see somebody bring back a portrait like this, I'm like, you are not in control.
Right.
This is your chance to completely control, and that means going in, seeing where the light's happening, finding a nice clean background, or possibly a background that adds something to it, you know, in some sort of environmental portrait. But, you know, like, you're in charge. Like, you don't need things coming out of people's heads. You don't need glaring white, you know, bright spots in the background. Like, you should be in complete control, and if your portrait doesn't show that you are, then you didn't do your job that day.
Absolutely. Good point.
Do you think the photos are on that side to not cover up the ribbons?
I don't.
I mean,
who knows?
Boy, that's subtle, if so.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even, if that, I don't know. I don't know. It's just there's just not a control of the situation and not in control of the light. So I would not assume that they were in control of that, like, in a sense. Like, I think it was just, we're going to set this here, this adds this element to me, and then we're going to shoot it. I think this person just needs a little bit more experience of work in a room and work in a portrait.
Yeah, I think for me as a photographer, it was the hardest thing to learn, was how to take control and how to take charge of these situations. And sometimes it's somebody in power, you know, or somebody famous,
That's
or, you
a
know,
lot for us, yeah.
a big name,
Yep.
you know, and you don't want to ask them, but I think it's just putting the camera down for a few seconds and saying, like, you know what, sir, if you turn this way, and sometimes show them on the back of the camera, you know, and, like, this is what I'm working with here. But it's just a matter of asking, you know, asking them to do something for you, to turn a certain way. Like, can we just move your desk? I rearranged the entire office of the FEMA director the other day. You know, I was in there shooting him, and I was like, sir, can I take these phones and this thing of pins? And I, like, sat it all on the floor. And I shifted his desk just a little bit, you know, just to get him looking out the window, just to get that light on him. You know, and sometimes it's those little things where you take charge and you say, you know what, give me 30 seconds, we're going to make an amazing image of you. Because you want a killer picture of yourself if you're sitting for a publication.
Absolutely.
Next photo. Now, obviously, this one has been stretched out.
It was vertical as well. Yeah.
Right, so for those of you at home, I can assure you the judges did not view it this way.
No, this was actually a really nice portrait.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the first times I've seen light used well. Like, they obviously lit this.
Yeah.
You can see the catchlight in her eyes. There's this gorgeous background of sort of this glassy water and these mountains up in Alaska.
Love Alaska.
It was a really well done. Oh, Alaska.
Yeah.
Danny. Oh,
Good times.
yeah. But it was a really nice environmental portrait.
Yeah.
You know, and I love that little pop of color and the orange up against this sort of monochromatic sky.
Yeah, gotta love orange and blue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder why that is, Benny.
All right, go ahead.
Next photo.
Oh, was that a Syracuse reference?
Or Florida.
I was going
We can go
Florida.
Florida. I'm from Orlando.
It adds something in a package. I don't know if it adds something as a standalone, you know, and it does make me question what's happening. I'm sure you guys see this a bit more than I do. Just sort of these wet hands on this, you know, this rope that's being pulled.
A lot of rope.
A lot of rope.
A lot of rope this year.
But yeah.
The hands are great. Like, I do want to know. I do want to know more. And as a supporting element, it's too much on the rope and not enough on the hands, in a sense. Like, but I just want to see more.
Next photo.
This is a situation where you need to work it.
Yeah.
You see something, you're responding to something. You know, the cut line, if I'm remembering correctly, said something about the barnacles on the boat that were pulled up, or, you know, and it's like, you saw this and you saw this really cool reflection, and, you know, you kind of have this chance to work it and wait, and you didn't, you know, and
Or you did, and you didn't use that one.
yeah, I mean, that too.
And when the reflection is not that, it's not, you know, you're not going to get a sharp, you know, anything out of it, but you're still getting this mirroring effect that's happening. Like, use that to your advantage, get back a little bit, and just to make something look a little more unusual. But yeah, it doesn't give much outside of that.
kudos to seeing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know, and now you just start working it.
Next photo.
Oh, that sucks.
Oh yeah, that looks so cool.
No, thank
But what,
you.
as a photographer though, what's really, I mean, you're focused in on this buoy and everything else. I'd work this scene a little bit more. He's obviously scraping some stuff, and it's, you know, it's more about him in this sense and the environment. Yeah. Just again working the frame.
Yeah, it just feels really flat to
Yeah.
me. You know, sometimes like foreground, background, you think you're seeing something, but it falls short. For me, we always talk about like these rule of threes, you know, and if you can kind of make a triangle in your image, it's inherently a better image because it's not static. You start to layer, you start to add elements into a frame, and you got to take it one step beyond just a simple foreground, background.
Yeah.
This photographer does this a lot.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, water drops on a rope or snow on a buoy, you know, they're seeing something and they're responding to it, and now it's just letting it all come together, you know.
We progress, you know,
Yeah,
just keep
no,
at
absolutely.
it. It's a normal
It's
progression.
baby steps.
Yep.
I mean, it's good seeing, and now it's just like, how do I take it one step further?
To communicate what you're trying to communicate.
Okay, well, we're going to stop here for just a moment. We're going to take a 15-minute break. We will be back at it at 10:45, and stick around. More to come. Hi, and welcome back. We're going through the Photographer of the Year submissions, and joining me in the studio, in case you're just joining us, is Benny Davis and Melissa Little. We have a few more photographs to go through, so we'll go ahead and get started with that. Let's jump right back into it.
Perfect.
Next photo. Again, I would like to point out for people who are joining us just recently, some of these photos, as you were seeing them, are not the photos the way the judges saw them when they were judged. So what we're going to be talking about in these photos is the distortion, we are fully aware, was not there when this was all looked at. So all of our responses and whatnot are based on what we saw as judges. So
basically all the verticals are being stretched into horizontals.
basically.
So with this photograph, and Melissa touched on it a little bit earlier from this photographer, they're really focusing in on that foreground element of the hands or something that's happening or anything else. And even with this shot, from what I could see, I mean, you got the sparks, you got the light, you're shooting it, but there's no moment, there's nothing beyond that. Your focus is up on the hands. It's an almost there. The photographer will naturally progress. I think everybody and every one of us has kind of gone through this. And then you start to learn how to layer that photograph, and you start to really see into the photo, and you start to understand the foreground, the middle ground, the background, and you know, that hopefully that's the next progression for this photographer as well. And then of course with all these, moment is key. So waiting for a good moment. Sometimes light and sparks and everything else catch your eye, but work that into the frame with a nice moment.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better.
Next photo. More rope.
More rope.
But this rope is frozen.
This rope is frozen.
Or just wet, and it's,
wow.
yeah. There's a lot of tug of war being played this last year in the military, or whatever's happening here. But again, the photographer sees this, and I understand why you're going in and why you want to make a picture of this. But it'll come in time when you start to understand where you should probably be to make this photograph. It's the picture's right there on the side. I love the water coming off and everything else in here, but you really got to get into to what's happening, or really get back to give context to what's, you know, that this is a tug of war. Because if you just see this as a standalone, you see a bunch of dudes like really stressing over some rope. You don't really understand, you know, what it's for. But yeah.
For me, like, what's different about this one from all of the other rope pictures we've seen is that water.
There's the water.
Like,
yeah.
that's an extra cool element that I like that they were trying to capture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe you just get under the rope. You get those drops falling, and those drops, now's the time to go foreground, background,
right.
you know, and that would also clean it up. You get this truck parked back here behind these guys. It's a little distracting.
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, for me, when I walk up to a frame and it's just like, this is going to be my scene, but that's what makes it special. Like you don't see this every day with these drops of water falling off this rope like this. Kudos to the high shutter speed to capture that. Just shoot it better. You're seeing it, you're there, and now just work it. I mean, I want to see these drops and like really feel like that's what the photographer's intent was.
Absolutely.
Next photo.
I wouldn't want to play tug of war against him.
No.
His biceps are as big as my thighs. Like, that's incredible.
And it's, it's good gesture and everything that's going on. There's a lot of dead space in the frame, right towards the center. And this work only really works in context with an overall package of, we're playing tug of war. But getting, if this individual that's cheering them on gets in a little tighter or anything else, or working a little bit to bring them together, because it's kind of separated for what it is. It's a supporting element for this story. It really doesn't stand alone as a solid standalone photograph or storytelling photograph.
I think like one cool thing you can do is like, you're seeing these things over and over again, whether you're in the military or whether you're on a staff at a newspaper somewhere. And every time you're out there, you make this image because you have to.
Right.
And then you say, how can I make it different? How can I challenge myself to shoot something I haven't before? And like, I want to see a portrait series of just like yelling guys, and then like be told in the caption, that this was this tug of war thing.
Yeah.
Just like that expression's awesome.
Yeah.
Go
Great,
super tight vertical just on these like screaming, pulling, struggling faces, and like do a portrait series on that. Like have some fun with it. Like you're given these really cool things. Give me 8 screaming, grimacing, pulling faces.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good point. And so thinking about it, you're right that you go out there and you're shooting this on the daily, but thinking beyond that, what are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to have fun with? That's a good way to do it. And these are, again, we're critiquing these on the sense of these are portfolio images. These should be a step above. This should be the best of what you got and the best of what the Department of Defense has got. And that's why sometimes it sounds a little bit critical. These are good frames. These are good moments. You want a moment like this that we're critiquing, but we're just talking about for portfolio-wise, it needs to be a step above.
Next photo.
I love that idea of somebody's gonna, if somebody does not shoot,
steal it, take it, it's yours.
The portrait series of grimacing faces and yelling of tug of war, because obviously there's a lot of tug of war happening in the DoD. We've seen it in 3 packages now, I think almost.
Well, I mean, for me, like I look at a lot of work, and so you go through, Pictures of the Year International, NPPA's Best of Photojournalism winners, and you see like what the standard is. And what you do is you start to borrow from those good ideas and you like put those in your back pocket. How can I do this in my community? How can I do this on my ship? How can I do this on this deployment? And, for me, like 10 years ago at an Olympics, it was just tight pictures of divers' faces. So it was, hair flying up, water droplets spinning off, and just like, grimacing, yelling, faces of competition. And that's all it was, super tight frames. And it was such a different look at diving. Like we know what diving looks like. We know what tug of war and rope pull looks like, but it's like, give me something else. Like, how do you take that to the next step? So yeah, please, somebody next year, I'm going to be looking, take this idea, whether it's, warrior games and competing athletes, shoot it tight, whether it's rope pull, shoot it tight, like find a way to see these things a little bit differently than your peers are, because that's what's going to set you apart.
What do we think of this?
The photographer has been relying a lot on that shallow depth of field, shooting wide at 2.8. Everything is, right here, it's right there on the secondary hand, right in this almost center of the frame, and then they're letting everything else drop, where you're losing a lot. I mean, you have to understand how to use that tool and then your depth of field, and then how and what you're going to do with it. And for this photographer through this series, it's been this way, and you've kind of mentioned this. It's so focused on the foreground element, and then everything else is gone. And you really got to work all 3 of those dimensions: foreground, middle ground, and background.
Next photo.
I mean, I like the higher shutter speed, the droplets of water. Like water does really cool things when you're shooting it that fast. I think what would have made this a little better to me is it's just slightly different composition. I feel like it's a little weighted on the right with things that are distracting. And maybe just an eye, you know, maybe just an eye popping up. I mean, I think the frame's in there somewhere. And there's some things that are happening that are really great. And then it's just waiting, you know, that eye pops open, or, you know, the water droplet completes the curve around the face. And, you know, it just comes with shooting and experience and just being in these situations, and how can I do it? How can I do it differently? How can I, you know, motor through this time and maybe get something a little special? It's an almost, you know.
Next photo.
These look miserable. You guys put yourselves through some things that just look cold and miserable. Like,
the face does look miserable.
Man.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's all the same as almost you said in the last photograph. And again, I don't know if this is a standalone shot or if it's part of a series or anything else, but it's the two of them just don't work together inside of a portfolio.
Absolutely.
But I love the face here.
Yeah. This could be anywhere, you know, like maybe a little context would help. Maybe some mountains. If you're in Alaska, maybe, you know, just to kind of tell that story a little bit better about where this training is happening.
Next photo. Again, we will point out, we know the photo is distorted as you are seeing it.
What I did like about this one was just, now's the time to go shallow depth of field.
Yeah.
You know, like it really cleans up this image. It really makes this person pop, you know, and his expression, if you actually saw the vertical, it is just this wonderful bit of sort of jubilation, you know, and cheering on. It's people there, I'm sure, that are pulling ropes, but but yeah, like this is the time to go clean, you know, and you can clean it up a little bit. There's some distracting elements at the bottom that are little bright spots. Benny probably wants to use the word bokeh again.
The circles of confusion. Hard. I mean, it's hard to. I remember seeing it as the vertical, but yeah, great gesture and body language. It's hard to kind of talk through it with you with it being distorted, but you guys will get the gist of it. You'll see it later.
Next photo, please.
Do I still sound like I'm in slow motion?
I'm waiting for somebody to send me a note that you do.
That's a better pull and rope shot.
Okay.
But I want to see. I kind of want to see everybody's faces a little bit in this one. Sorry, I'm not cropping. It's just the lights.
So you want more depth of field in this one?
Yeah, for me, I would. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would take more depth of field, and I love the drop of water coming off the helmet and everything else. But I'm shooting this at like f/16, you know, and then I just want to see everything kind of piled in together, and then losing everything off to the side, just bringing it in right into them.
Because there's a lot of great faces being made
Just
here.
for me, there's some good faces that are inside of there.
Yeah.
And the rain is the biggest element that adds inside of this. Slightly coming over to lose the license plate or whatever's on the side over there.
Maybe losing this arm
On the side too.
Here.
These distractions that are just sitting on the edges of your frame. You'll have a nice clean background if just getting closer to the rope a little bit. But
I do think it's important to remember, like if you're shooting at f/16 or f/22, everything's going to be in focus.
Yeah.
So only put the elements in that frame that you want in that frame. If you shoot this super tight at f/16,
it has to be inside. Yeah.
It's got to be everything you want in that frame, because everything from 0 to infinity is going to be tack.
Yeah.
But it's your chance to really layer and to really give you all those good faces to look at, and that body language and those droplets. And there's a picture in this picture.
Yeah, I mean,
For sure.
I dig this photograph, you know, in a sense of what it cleaned up. But when you're looking at your whole package and you're shooting everything else shallow depth of field, to have something just visually look different would be nice, especially for a photograph that has this nice sense of feeling with the wetness and the rain and everything else.
This is our last photo, the one coming up next.
Is it tug of war?
Oh. Well, it still involves a rope. So
here's the other side of the rope that's happening, right? And so this one's a better side, but needs to be cleaned up a little bit to change perspective. So again, I encourage, you photography is a team sport. It's, when you're out there and you're a shooter, it's one thing. But when you're coming back in, it's team time. And it's time to get a mentor, and it's time to get some perspectives on your photographs, and it's time to get help when editing this stuff and laying it out on your portfolio. You wouldn't have these two throwing rope shots with the orange ball inside of your portfolio, inside of a picture series, inside of anything. They would compete against each other. You want to use every opportunity with your photographs to look different and say something different, communicate something different, whether you're doing a narrative or an essay. So if you have an essay that's revolved around one theme, Alaska Coast Guard, whatever, or you're doing a narrative on a specific training and what it is, and you're trying to tell a story. So that photo series, and which is what I've seen mostly here, I've not really seen picture stories inside of these packages. There's no narratives, there's no stories being told. There's simply a photo essay or theme revolved around an exercise or an event that's taking place here. When you're doing that, each photo has to look different and say something different. They can't communicate the same thing, not the same action. You want to change it up. So really get somebody to help you, looking at your work, reaching out to mentors, reaching out to editors to break that stuff down, because I'm sure a lot of the photographs that we've seen from these sets of photographers, there's some really good stuff, and I'm sure there's even better stuff in their takes that they're not seeing, or they're not understanding how to put this puzzle together. So something that I would put out there, really, once you get back, it's team sport time, and it's time to add some folks to your team to help you out.
So we've talked about mentoring and the value in the mentoring and the value of having an editor and the value of working together to create imagery that tells a story. Mm-hmm. If I've been in the service for maybe 4 years, I've been doing the photography, I'm on a ship a year at a time, or deployed somewhere downrange, where am I reaching back to find those mentors?
For a young individual that's starting out, you would first start with the folks that are around you, even getting perspectives. I see it a lot where folks will go out and shoot and they'll put their stuff together. They won't even get the perspectives of the people that are in their shop, right? So, but
what if I'm one deep?
If you're one deep, then you have to get past yourself and you've got to reach out to people, because the community is vast. There's not a photographer I haven't met that if I even online like their stuff or anything else, that I've been able to reach out inside of these photo communities for the military or photo community in general at large in industry, and saying like, I really appreciate your work, I'm trying to do this, can you help me put these things together? And I've never been declined, or sometimes it takes some time with some of the photographers that you go after to take a look at your stuff. But I've never had anything declined and said, I can't help you. There are so many people that are willing to help and give back. So as a photographer, you should be looking at photography. You should be looking at other people's work in the military. You should be looking, so if you find somebody that you like in the military, reach out to them. Dude, I saw your stuff, can I send you, my stuff and you take a look? Or, for us in the military too, you have a DENFOS instructor, that's almost your first line of defense. Even send it back to them if you're one deep somewhere. But look at other people's work, and if you like it, send it off. You can't just take the perspectives of the folks around you, because a lot of times they're not going to give you the heart-to-heart. They're going to give you the pat on the back. My grandma still thinks I'm the best photographer in the world, right? So if I just go off of Nana's, compliments, I'm not going to really grow. So it's meeting.
Nana's not wrong.
No, she's not wrong, but she still thinks that I fly planes to take pictures. But you have to reach out and get a different perspective and look on your photographs.
So, and coming back to something that you had said earlier, Melissa, about being timid as a shooter, those things to me seem to go hand in hand. If I'm too timid to reach out to peers and potential mentors, then I'm going to remain timid, period. So I think it's a growth exercise as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no reward if you don't take a risk, and it's like you've got to put yourself out there sometimes if you want to get better. You've got to push yourself, like we all think we're doing a good job until we know what else is out there, and sometimes you can do that reality check in the privacy of your own, office if you're one-person shop. Go to Pictures of the Year International, go to NPPA's Best of Photojournalism, go to worldpressphoto.org. Look online and see what really good work is being done. Study it. Why is it good? Why is it compelling? And then you start to just you get this book of ideas, and you're like, next time I'm out there, I'm going to try that thing that I saw. Right. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, you know, I really love that series on X. I'm going to try to make that here at my shop, you know, and bring this to my community. But yeah, if you're not taking chances and you're not putting yourself out there, like, your growth is limited by your experience. And a lot of times, like, those of us who've been doing this for a while, like, we want to see that next generation up and come. That's why we teach at the workshops we teach at. That's why we try to bring people up, you know, and it's finding those people that you admire, and it's dropping an email. Everybody's online, everybody's on social media. Like, you can find me out there, you can find Benny out there, you can find Jeremy Locke out there. You know, you find these people that you admire the work of. Drop a simple hello. Hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm in this branch, I've been doing this for 2 years, I really love your shot of this. How do I get to be where you are? Like, do you have any tips for me starting out on things I should be working on? Here's a story I just did, do you have any feedback?
Right.
You know, and it's just sometimes just putting stuff out there, and, you know, and really taking that criticism back, because if you're not getting real with yourself and taking that constructive criticism to heart, then put it on Instagram, get the likes and favorites, you know, get the kudos and the pats on the back. But if you want to grow as a photojournalist and you want to be the best in your field, you know, you take the baby steps that you can to learn and grow every chance you get.
Yeah. One of the things that we had talked about when you talk about taking chances and whatnot was making sure that you had the shots covered that you needed, and then going back and being able to take some risks, do something. Because I know for a lot of, I know when I was I'm a videographer, broadcaster, but when I was doing it, you would always get the story and then you'd add.
Sure.
You know, and if you had that time, you were adding and finding other ways to do it. But the key thing for us, generally speaking, is you got to come back with something in the bag.
Absolutely.
But I think risk and understanding that risk is good is also paramount within our community, because we're not all the time, much of the time, we're not pushed to do those things. So it has to come from inside.
Absolutely. I mean, you could be the photographer in the military. Is a weird place where 7:30 to 4:30, you're going to be a photojournalist and you're going to make your money regardless of how dedicated you are to the craft or not. But obviously with individuals like this, when you fall in love with something or it starts to mean something to you and you start to become more dedicated to this, you go above and beyond. So it's more than just showing up for the event. Military is very event driven on these things. I used to tell a lot of my students, like, you're covering a promotion ceremony, right? So you got to come back with that one shot, the give me the stick photo, where they stand there and they hold the stick together of command, and then you look to the boom, you're done. You've served your purpose, you know, as a public affairs, you know, journalist on capturing what happened. That's the photo that they're going to always use, right?
Yep.
But what happens at those ceremonies? There's laughing, there's crying, there's you know, so much tension that happens beforehand. Maybe this is somebody's last day of command and they're gone out of the military. Maybe for the wife, this has been a traumatic situation, or the kids watching their father or mother say goodbye after they take command. There's so many pictures to be made outside of the give me the stick photo. And you can go get the give me the stick and you can be done with your day.
Well, and you need to.
And you need to. You
need to cover your butt.
You got to,
like,
CYA,
absolutely.
right? So you get that shot, but just be mindful that there is so much else happening around you. And get there early and stay late has always been, you know, the thing, like, you want to do. Very seldom do you see people cover an event like that with a dedication that it would be covered if it was a photographer from industry coming from the outside. If I let Melissa into a wing change of command ceremony, the photos that she would get, like, they're there for anybody to take, but it's just like dedicated on the before, the after, what does it feel like to go through this process, not just what does it look like to change a command. So those are the things that you have to have inside of you to be dedicated to shooting. Because you could easily just grab that one shot and go back to the shop and, you know. And
I think we've all known people who do.
Yeah, you know, and they got the job done. But for those of you that are more dedicated, focus on that. Focus on just not covering the event, covering what it feels like, cover the different perspectives of the event. Those are some things that you should be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I always try to tell students at, you know, like the Worldwide Workshop or Eddie Adams Workshop or any of these places where you can learn and grow and push yourself, is to find different ways to tell the story. And for me, that clicked when I was told to shoot adjectives and adverbs and not nouns and verbs.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's like,
wow.
You know, going into a situation, you know, if you're sent to the Warrior Games and you want to get the bikers biking, you know what that looks like. You know what a person riding a bicycle looks like. That image is in your head, in your memory bank. How do you show fast? Oh, you pan. Oh, that's a great idea. That shows speed, that conveys motion. You know, or maybe you shoot a really slow shutter and you let that person blur through the frame. You know, you start to pull out from your bag of tricks. And you're like, how do I capture fast? How do I capture speed? How do I capture competition? What does competition look like? You know, and you start to look for those words. And when you see them, little light bulbs go off, you know, and that way you're not just there shooting the obvious, you're looking for the story, and you're trying to find some way to put those words into images.
That's it. Same way I do it. Make a list of any event that I go out to. I'll think of whether it's tug of war competition. I'm thinking of all those adjectives of what it's going to feel like, what you're going to see. You're going to see camaraderie. You're going to see, you know, celebration. You're going to see agony. You're going to see, you know, the stress. Like, you're out there looking for these things. You're not looking for pictures. You're looking for how to communicate those words.
It's fantastic. Well, guys, I want to say thank you so much for coming out today. Benny sat in for one of our judges who was unable to make it, so thank you so much for that.
Yep.
It's been fantastic. Melissa, so great to have you here.
Pleasure, thank you.
Again, that's the end of today's live feedback. Please join us here again tomorrow at 9, and we'll be going through the Videographer of the Year entrance. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.